Okay. So I request you all who are in the audience to use chat box to send us questions. My team will collate the questions, preferably chat box. Even if you don't want to use chat box, you can also use the question area. Before we start with the session in general, I want to give a trigger warning. The session might have incidents which you or your family or friends have faced. Please reach out to groups like us, and even after the session, we'll put some support groups through which you can reach out to psychiatrists, therapists, counselors in general. If you need help with respect to any content removal, anything in general, please reach out to us. We are a consultancy and organization which works for the same. The session is to introduce you to different facets of it, and we understand the triggering of impact of it, so please do reach out if anything. Also, apart from this, we also have support groups who are in touch with us. You can send us your number on the helpline, which is there in the contact details on the Instagram page. We'll send you help through them. Just a disclaimer, and now we start. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing great. I am Tanvi from the Cyberblog India team, and I will be your host for today. This is going to be our second Instagram session. One of it is already there in the live sessions of our page. This is a run-up to our 2022 conference, which is titled as Abuse and Harassment in Cyberspace, Beyond the Perceived Notions of the Mainstream. The conference seeks to initiate discussion on the threats faced by the LGBTQIA+ community, members of the internet, to facilitate sharing of niche stories and first-hand experiences of the community members. And third, to raise awareness about the challenges faced by the community while dealing with the cybercrime incidents. To know more about the conference, I request you all to follow our page, drop a text on our helpline number, which you can find on the contact details section of our page itself. For today's session, we have Gotham Rajpal. Gautam is a computer science graduate who runs business in Rishikesh, India. He is gay and loves to talk about LGBTQIA+ issues in general. He aims at eliminating stigma that surrounds the community. Gautam loves to talk about people and from different backgrounds and cultures. He previously has also done a gender sensitization session with us, the Cyberblog India team. We are so glad, Gautam, that you accepted our invitation for the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's my pleasure.
If there's anything which I've missed out in general, I request you to add here, please.
No, I think you covered all the general things about me. I'm pretty happy with the introduction.
Okay. So Gautam, we'll start in general with the questions. I think the first question I think even the audience wants to hear is that when was the first time you began your journey as a gay person on the internet?
I think there was no particular point of time when I felt like, oh yeah, fine, I am this way, and this is how I'm going to live my life. I think I always kind of knew from a very early age that there was something different about me. Not particularly knowing at a very young age that it was a thing and that there was a name for it, but I did know that I inclined towards like I belong to a particular section of the society, not really because I felt out of place because I belonged to a very small town and there were not really people around to look up to who identified openly, and so yeah, there was no particular time. I think self-acceptance was tough, and I think only by the age of 19 I was able to accept that that this is nothing wrong, that there is nothing wrong about it, and that this is absolutely normal. I think it was also because of the accessibility of the internet, where I saw people. I got to know a lot of people who are very successful and very out there. That helped me, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I think one thing which I was really shocked, and I'm very interested to know actually personally as well, is to know that business field in general is pretty male dominated, and that too cis men dominated. And when you are venturing into it, that too as a queer person, was there any challenges with respect to the kind of people you reach, the clients you reach onto?
I'm actually pretty new to business. Like I have only been doing business for 2 years now, almost 2 years now. So far, I personally haven't faced any issues regarding my orientation, regarding my sexuality. I don't think that there's anything, any issues or any challenges that I've faced as such. But But yes, I do agree that it's a male-dominated field, and that too very cis male-dominated field, and people don't really look up to gay people, and they're like, oh yeah, they can be a businessman. They don't really expect that. Same goes for women as well. Not a lot of people have the mentality that women have what it takes to run a business, run a successful business. But well, they're absolutely wrong, and we have so many female business women, and they're doing really well in life. And I think I also want to be there, but I also at the same time feel like your orientation or sexuality doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing in your profession, which is also why so many corporate firms, they have their own laws against, um, bias against LGBTQ community, which is actually really nice, because a few years ago, people could be fired from their jobs just because of their orientation. And that's not the case anymore. I think we're living in a better world that way. So I think the corporate field is becoming more and more inclusive. They're becoming more and more open to women, to people from the LGBTQ community. I don't really feel that I have any challenges, to be honest, because also I don't usually attach my lifestyle with my business. So probably that's why I haven't really faced any issues.
Right. I think one thing which would drive from this is that you come from a very, very small town in India. And in India in general has taboos and social fears around it about how a particular child from the family doesn't go on the path which so-called the black and white has been decided by the family already. So what were the challenges which you faced with respect to family, friends, neighbors, relatives when it comes to coming out in general?
Yeah, I feel like people from the small town have a certain kind of mindset, and that's not very easy to surpass, and it's not really easy to make them see the bigger picture. But for me personally, I've been really fortunate in my life to have family that is very understanding. Uh, they're not really very forceful. They don't ask. They don't coerce me to living a certain lifestyle. They're always very open to understanding, to accept, to learn new things. Which is where I feel that I'm actually really privileged in that way. Very fortunate to have people, to have family around who are always very supportive and just there for me. So I think again at this, I would say that I have never really faced any challenges in that respect either. It was obviously a process. Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I told them, I came out to them and they were like, yeah, okay, fine, we're fine with the lifestyle. It was not like that, obviously. There were hardships, but I don't want to minimize my hardships either. But yes, I feel like they were very understanding and they were very open to me expressing my true self to them. Because one thing that they kind of understand is that their love as parents should trump everything else. Like, no matter how far-fetched or how weird an idea might seem, their love for their children is kind of at the top of the list. I think we, as a family, we all have reasons to hate each other in a family, because there are characteristics to every person in the family that we don't really like. And I think adding on to, I mean, my lifestyle, my choices to express myself in the bedroom is also a characteristic. It is just another thing that adds to my characteristics. It's not really the complete definition of me. So, so I guess that's what they understand, and that's what they feel, that yeah, even if they're not comfortable with my orientation, with my choices in life, they still choose to love me, and their love for me is above everything else, which is actually really nice to know that your family is always going to be there for you.
Okay. Yeah. Totally. I think one thing which we all have discovered during the last 2 years of COVID is that internet has given voice to so many more queer members, and they have come out as drag artists and activists and influencers in general. So what is your outlook on how internet has been for you in the last 2 years, or maybe your friends, if not you?
I feel absolutely at peace knowing the fact that people who are 16, 17, 15, coming of age, trying to understand themselves better, won't find it as difficult as I did to look up to people who they can relate to, because now we have Indian people from the community who have gained so much fame over Instagram, over YouTube, expressing their truest selves, and there is so much diversity. Like there is so many boxes that you can check, and yet so little. You know, so I feel grateful. I feel really nice knowing that a small town boy like me wouldn't have to struggle as much to look for people around them on the internet to find people they can relate to. I think this lockdown was actually really good, and in that respect, not really in good in general. Obviously, it was very sad for a lot of people throughout the world, and I think I'm fortunate that I didn't have to face any loss, any hardships during the lockdown. But yes, in that respect, in making people from the LGBTQ community more visible, I think the lockdown did a great job. People found a lot of time uh, to create their content and put it online. They got a lot of time to finally understand themselves, spend a lot of time with themselves, because otherwise we're just so busy with our day-to-day chores and stuff that we forget to connect with ourselves. I think that's what it did for the people for the community, from the community. So
Totally. Yeah. I think we should first now acknowledge the Gotham army which is there in the chat box area. With so many people.
I was just reading the comments and I'm like, thank you guys. Yeah, I have people rooting for me.
It's so glad, no, to see that there are people out there who are looking for you, who are reaching out to you, who are like there for you. I think from there, my question to you is going to be hate speech. How you dealt with it?
I guess initially online when I used to get hate comments and stuff, it was kind of difficult for me to process that. It was not the nicest thing I could imagine, and it used to affect me a lot. Like I used to spend a lot of time thinking about why people are posting such hateful comments and stuff. But I think with time, I have just learned how to turn a blind eye to such comments, to hate speech, because at the end of the day, what I'm doing by paying them any mind is affecting my own mental peace, which I don't want. I really like to keep my mental peace. I'm a very calm person in general. I don't really like to disturb my peace. So I guess it's just a process for everybody, anybody online, from the community, from any minority in general. They have to kind of just accept it, because I think you can't really do anything about it. There's only so much you can do about hate comments and hate speech on the internet, and even though there are cyber laws and stuff, but we all know how even cyber laws are very ineffective in a lot of countries, including India, right? So who do you look up to when you face such issues online? Because these people who are actually putting hate comments, putting hateful speech online, they're hiding behind fake identities. They don't really have their real true selves, and then they go ahead and comment. And I mean, yes, there's Kangana Ranaut, but but then I'm talking about the haters that just randomly slide into your DMs, into your comments and stuff, and you can't really do anything about it. So I guess it's a process for everybody. They just have to learn how to not give them any mind, give them any thought, and just let them be, and do exactly what Alok Menon does: pin their comments on your pictures and show them that their comments aren't really affecting you.
Yeah. Apart from that, I think one thing which adds another niche or layer to the whole abuse in general and harassment in general online is if it comes to somebody who's very close to you, say a very close friend, or somebody who's like an intimate partner or a previous intimate partner. And those things are so much more difficult to deal with, even not only for the cis community, but also for the queer community. So, as a queer person, how have you been dealing with it? How have you seen your friends deal with it?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of cases of abuse that I witness my friends going through. Fortunately, I haven't been subjected to any kind of abuse relating to the community as such, neither intimately or otherwise. But yes, I have so many friends who have gone through a lot of hardships, a lot of harassment, and over the years by their intimate partners, by people in general, by unknown dates on dating websites. So yes, there is a lot of trauma and there is a lot of harassment that goes around, and I guess that's where you also come in, and you. That's why I really appreciate um, people like Cyberblog, because at the time when we are facing such harassments, I think all we're looking for is somebody to guide us to go through the whole process of reporting, of doing something about it, changing stuff. And I think that's where firms like you, that's where communities like you come in and help us, because we feel safe, we feel like our identities are not being disclosed, because obviously disclosing identities is a huge part of the community, and not everybody, I think most of the people, I should say, are comfortable with disclosing their identities and coming out in the front and accepting and doing something about it. So I guess harassment in our community is so much more worse because people don't really know how to go about things without disclosing their sexual identities, and that's one thing that makes it all the more difficult. But then yeah, I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, harassment still goes on, and I think that's the whole purpose of sessions like this, like what we are having right now, is to create awareness, is to tell people that you're not alone in this. There's a lot of people who go through the same thing, which doesn't make it better, which actually makes it worse, but also makes you safe, also makes you feel like if other people can go through it, then maybe so can I, because a lot of people lose hope in such scenarios and they find it difficult to hold on to something, you know, and so they just give up altogether. And that's where it kind of helps that the community will come forward. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of trauma, but obviously we have a lot of work to do in that.
I think one thing which I drawed from there was reporting. Reporting also becomes a very, very difficult task when there are fears and taboos attached. And also when your families don't know about something like this. When you're putting yourself out as a queer person, there are so many more complexities involved which you don't want to put out in public. So how do you think could be some other ways of dealing with it apart from the reporting?
Can you come again, because it was kind of really noisy here. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay, surely. I think when you said reporting, I do understand that there are a lot of complexities attached to it when you're a queer person. Complexities like taboos, fears, society, log kya kahenge, and also family, right? You don't want your family to know that you have been facing something like this, or you don't want them to know that you have been, say, out on dating apps. So how do you deal with this when you are a queer person if you don't want to report in general?
I guess the whole part of having a community as such, of having a group of people, and how it is so important to have friends in the community is because of the fact that they help you go through stuff. When you feel like there's no hope elsewhere, when you don't see any hope in the law authorities, in the police authorities, that's when you kind of feel like going to your friends. And you know, a lot of times what happens is your friends happen to have a lot of power in their own fields. For example, I know a lot of queer lawyers, and I feel it's very important for people to talk to people from the community, I guess, because you know, law authorities in general, they're not really trained how to deal with people from particular communities. That kind of knowledge, that kind of it's spread in the West. I think now in the West, it's an idea that, you know, the police needs to be trained. They need to know the right pronouns. They need to know how to talk to people from a particular community. But I think that's not a very Indian concept still. I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done there. But that's why I think a lot of people also don't feel comfortable going to authorities, going to the police, because they think that they will end up judging them, and they'll end up providing the wrong advice just because they don't even know how to, you know, communicate with people. So I guess the best thing one can do is ask for help through online communities, through the cyberblog and other firms like that. And yeah, I think that's kind of the best way to go through stuff. Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
My
What do you?
they're sitting in the next room and they're here.
It's so good to see support from friends. And as you just mentioned right now, I think in the last statement that it's so important to have friends.
Yeah,
I'm happy to see that you have a lot of them.
yeah. I am really fortunate to have the best set of people I could find.
So I think one thing which I want to know now towards the line of the impact. When something like this happens, say to your friend, or even to your family member, or a person who is a queer person who faces abuse or harassment, or even say somewhere he's given fraud or misidentification where he goes ahead to some person assuming something to happen and the opposite happens, right? So in situations like these, how does it impact person who have probably not faced it, but is seeing all this happening in front of their eyes?
Can you come again because I didn't really get the question.
Okay, so there are days when you see that your friends have been, say, abused or harassed, or they have been put into a situation of fraud where they thought they're going to meet somebody who they were assuming to be, say, a dating person or a friend or a community member or a support group, but it turns out to be something very, very different, and you face a lot of abuse over there. In situations like these, when you are just a bystander and looking at all of this and probably have not put yourself in a situation like that, how a person like you who has not yet faced it but is looking at all of this happening on a daily basis think about and feel about all the impacts of putting yourself out there?
I think that's why it's so important for me. That's why I'm sorry about the honking. It's gonna go on for a while. Yeah, I think that's why I feel that it's my responsibility to talk about these issues even more because when you talk about it, you create awareness about stuff, right? And when you talk about harassment online, when you talk about hardships that you've gone through, I think it also helps people to be more cautious and at the same time feel that they're not alone in their journeys. And which is it kind of relates to your previous question as well. How do you feel about people from the community coming out during COVID times and putting their content online? I think it goes hand in hand, like making yourself visible because I think in the West as well, this realization came very early on. I think that's probably because of cultural differences. But I think from a very early time, people made it a point that they have to make themselves visible. They have to make their struggles visible, and which is kind of why I feel that West. Yeah, hi, I think I
uh,
lost you for a while.
yeah, I think even I did. Am I audible and visible now?
You are, you are audible. You're
Wait.
audible.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, I was just talking about how the gay rights movement it started in the West because I think that
Mhm.
people realize early on that they have to make themselves visible, they have to make their struggles visible, and because otherwise this cycle of harassment it'll never end, it'll never stop because how long can you go on feeling helpless, right? Like how long can you go to authorities and get turned down for help, for just general help that the authorities are appointed for. That's like their whole purpose of existence. They're to help other people, it's to help the citizens of their countries, right? And so I think that's why the gay liberation movement it just picked up, and people felt the need to come out more. People felt the need to make themselves visible, even if they're losing their jobs, even if they're losing their families. They're they still chose to make themselves visible, and that's where I think that actually takes true courage, and because when you go against the whole society, I mean, I think things now in 2022 they're still so much better than it used to be back in the 90s, but I think that's where the true courage lies, is to just be visible. I think that's the least one can do, and that's the most one can do at the same time. Is to just be, is to just exist as their true selves, because there is so much power attached to that. it's very easy to say that, oh yeah, I am my truest self. I am the person who I am inside out. But it's just a totally different thing to actually be that. So I guess even
Yeah.
as a bystander, you can just make yourself visible. You can make your struggles visible. You don't explicitly have to come out or say that you belong to a particular community, but you can just, there is so much more you can do. There's so much playing with words that you can do where you don't really need to come out, and you can still choose to discuss stuff, which is what I did initially as well. Like, I was not really comfortable, I was not really, but I still needed a point. Okay, it's nice to indulge in conversation and just talk about stuff.
Okay. I think from here I'll drive it to some other place, and that is, what do you think was the role of pornography in general for giving the enlightenment or empowerment to the queer community?
Well, I think porn can often be very misleading because it can infuse a totally different idea of how sex is supposed to be. But at the same time, what porn does for the gay community particularly is to normalize kinks, which I think is a huge topic even today, because I think even amongst the community members, there's a lot of kink shaming. There's a lot of because at the end of the day, sex is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to give you pleasure, and it's supposed to bring fullness in your life. Because the body wants what it wants, and there is no shame in accepting your body needs. And so I think I'm just going to answer this question specifically pertaining to the gay community, because I think I can speak for that. I'm not talking about this in general, but I think one thing that porn does is that it normalizes kinks. It allows people to see that there are other people, there are other sections in the world that also indulge in similar activities, and who also find pleasure in similar activities. So I guess that way it's kind of liberating to know that you're not alone in this, and that don't need to be ashamed of liking particular kinds of sex. So I guess, yeah, that's something that it does for sure.
I think role of media over the last 2 years for defining how exactly lesbianism or say gayism or even say trans society works in general in a community like that of India has been a huge thing over the last 2 years. OTT and even Bollywood, for that sake, has come out with a lot of movies and a lot of series and everything. So, how was that for you? And do you think were they the right approach forward for the media industry?
Yeah, I think I was really happy to see a lot of popular actors, a lot of mainstream actors going for roles that were at some point considered challenging, because uh, we haven't really been portrayed very well and truly in the media. So I think kudos to the fact that directors, writers, and actors are now seeing themselves in roles that were at one point considered challenging. But at the same time, I feel like the portrayal of people from the community is not apt. It's not exactly how it should be. And I still feel that there are only a very few movies in Bollywood specifically that actually show you the true sides of things. And those are the movies that I want more in the future. Those are the kind of titles that I would like to see more often. Not just a romantic comedy, not just another movie where they make fun of characters, and also at the same time providing roles to people from the community to represent people from the community. I think it's absolutely okay from a commercial headspace that at the end of the day, directors, producers of the movies, they want to earn money from their movies, right? So I think from a commercial standpoint, I think it's a wise decision to have mainstream actors, have famous actors acting in lead roles. But at the same time, I also feel like to portray true images of the community, it's also really important to have actors from the community to represent, to be acting in the movies. If there is a gay title, there should be people from the gay community. I'm sorry about the honking, I'm outside.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, so
I think from here, another question. Sorry, totally sorry.
no, I'm done.
Okay. I think one more question which I come across a lot from the industry in general is how cross-dressing has become one way of comic. How cross-dressing between men to women and women to men has become something that is hilarious, which could cause a lot of, say, body dysmorphia amongst the community members who are exploring as to how exactly and where exactly they fit in. How do you think it has been for you and your friends? You are muted, I think. Gautam, yeah, muted.
Sorry, I was muted, yeah. I think I enjoy comedy where you kind of blur gender lines. I think one of my favorite skits is SNL and Little Britain. And in Little Britain as well, two guys, not American, from the UK, who are acting in different roles, right? And they're dressing up as women, they're dressing up as gay characters, but then they're at the same time what they make sure is that they don't cross limits and that they don't offend any communities. They can dress up as whoever they want to be. They can express themselves as whoever they want to, they wish to, and make fun of different stuff, but not making at the same time remembering that they make fun of the community that they're dressing up as, then that's gonna fire back, and that's gonna be bad for people who belong to the same community because they feel out of place. They feel like they are being misrepresented, and that's where I think it becomes offensive and comic. Personally saying, I enjoy blurring gender lines. I enjoy that kind of comedy, unless it's offensive. Yeah.
Okay. When you are a closeted person, do you think that seeing, say, abuse and harassment news on television, or newspaper, or media, you feel that you should not come out, or you feel fearful, or you start questioning yourself when you are a closeted person? Because media can be very, very hateful and very, very dangerous to even look into.
Yeah.
So how was that for you when you were trying to explore things of opening up or not?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was exploring myself, and I was at the same time conflicted with the fact that if I do come out and if I do choose to accept myself, I'm still a criminal in the eyes of law. That if I am caught, and there have been instances. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's called Aligarh. It's based on true events, and it's about how a professor from the Aligarh University was actually put behind bars, and there was a whole case in the court law just because he was found indulging with another man, and they had proof of it. So yeah, that fear was always there. A, because I was still a criminal in the eyes of law, and B, because obviously there was a lot of stigma. Even while growing up, my friends would bully me a lot. Not my friends, actually my classmates. They were never my friends. They used to bully me a lot, call me names, just call me effeminate, and isolate me from the group sometimes. And that used to happen, and that used to scare me that, I have not even come out yet, and I still face so much bullying. I cannot even imagine if I did come out, how things would be then, So yes, that fear was always there, but I'm navigating that. I think that there is still work that needs to be done in that department, because as much as I would like to say that fear is not there anymore, it still somewhere is. It's very deep rooted. Just because this society is so patriarchal and so toxic masculine, that fear, I think it stays with you. Doesn't really leave you completely.
Right. I think recently there was this one movie which was banned. It is a movie showing how a military soldier is a gay person, and the reasoning for the same was that there's not requirement of having there's no legal requirement of having gay or even others as an option when you're filling up the forms in the military. And technically, though so the several people who are from the community member, but technically they don't mention that they are from the community. So do you think banning movies like such, which could actually bring a huge change and a complete wind of different direction in the armed forces which are associated with adjectives like, say, courage and bravery? Could those things be changed? And if yes, then how exactly we as people who are even cisgender and even community members could help in bringing all those changes?
I think if there has to be actual change in that respect, in respect of armed forces, I believe there have to be people from that particular community coming out and accepting, because no matter how much awareness we create, we still don't belong to the same community, and we will never have equal voices. So I believe, even though it takes a lot of courage and even though these people might end up losing their jobs and go through a lot of trauma, I think true change can only come if people actually come forward and they say that, I belong to this community and I should be able to serve in the armed forces because I want to. It doesn't have anything to do with my sexuality. It doesn't have anything to do with my orientation. I wish to serve my country and I should be allowed to serve my country either ways.
Totally. As a passing note, and as maybe last thought probably, what exactly are your recommendations, your suggestions, and your guidance for young budding influencers who belong to the queer community and how they're facing abuse online?
Just take the hate, process it, take your time. If it affects you, it should, because it will only make you stronger. Hate speech, just know that you're not alone in this, that people from your community are gonna have a hard way through, but also know that there are gonna be people who you are gonna have amazing time with, and those are the people who you should actually listen to, not faceless profiles online, not hate groups online, because they never cared about you. First, they will never care about you, and second, their opinions shouldn't matter, because they're not even a part of your life. I think as young individuals, we sometimes feel like people who are around us, who care for us, families, friends, we feel like they're always going to support us no matter what. And that's why we kind of seek for external approval from people who are just in general, our acquaintances and stuff. And I think that's what you should never do. Like, if you actually want true advice, listen to yourself and the people who actually have your good interests in their mind. And that's all that should matter to you.
And with this, if there's any tip you have for dating apps, I think that can be very, very daunting if you're a queer person.
Always
Please go ahead.
Always be sure. Especially if I ever meet, I am currently dating, so I'm not on dating apps anymore. But when I used to be on dating apps, I always make sure that the person who I'm going to meet is who they're or who they're showing themselves to be on the internet. I make sure that I have a video call with them or share their Instagram or other social media platforms, just not going with what they're sharing with me on the dating app, because there's a lot of people who will scam you, who will rob you, pretending to be somebody else online, and that's like my top advice to anybody who comes to me and asks me this question, like, how should I go about dating online in the community? Always be sure who you're meeting. Yeah, and then
Thank you so much, Gautam.
Why? Then you're in for a good date.
So people, please do your research before you go ahead, and always, always, always be very, very sure of who you're going to meet. It can be a daunting, dangerous world out there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gautam. I am so, so glad that you were here. We'll have Gautam again in panel.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to again have Gautam in the panel discussion coming in another month and a half. Yeah. Thank you so much, Gautam. Please stay in touch. And after this, we'll post a lot of support groups which you can reach out to. who can help you if you face something. And our line is always open for you anyways.
If you're
Thank you so much.
if you are listening, if you're facing any issues and you're from the community, you can just hit in Cyberblog on Instagram. You can seek their help. They'll guide you through stuff. And have a good time. Have a good Holi. I hope there's a lot of happiness and colors in your life throughout. And good luck. All right.
Yeah.
See you soon, Tanvi.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have a good day and a good party.
You too. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.